In a quiet Norwegian lake, a mysterious serpent swims, the pride of local residents.
The boat was just lifted up. Then we were scared.
It's known as Selma, the monster of Seljord.
She suddenly saw the thing.
We could see waves being produced pretty violently, so nobody really knows anything about what's down there. Quite scary, I guess.
Norway's Seljord is a peaceful village of 3,000 people resting on the banks of Seljord Lake. Here, 200 kilometers or 125 miles from the nation's capital of Oslo, nature reigns supreme. The Seljord Lake is the jewel of the region. It's 16 square kilometers or 6 square miles, kept pristine by local residents. And they take pride in the presence of a creature that arouses much debate. Selma, a lake monster by turns amusing and terrifying. This is the case for Stig Ellingsen. While testing a new boat on behalf of the Red Cross, the former military man had the scare of his life.
The Red Cross has just bought a new boat, like a diving boat. The motor was new, so we should drive very slow and take only the tour. And we was in the middle of the lake when it's deepest. It's like we slipped up and then it's go like this. And we heard the motor was up in the air, and then it's fall down again. And we think that it was on timber. Started up with the boat again and drive about 3 meters, and then the boat was just lifted up. Approximately about this up from the lake. We were 3 people on this boat. It's about 200 kilos with the motor. So it was very heavy. Then we were scared. Just started up the motor and drive into the land as fast as possible. We felt that it was something in the lake who is living and have lots of power.
Jan Svartal, the mayor of this small town, is particularly pleased to have so polarizing a creature living in Seljord Lake.
Seljord is a small place, a small municipality, but we have 700 square kilometers. So we have a bit space around us. We drive around the lake when we are going out of Seljord, and we look out to see if we can see the sea serpent. People have seen it also for hundreds of years. 200-300 years ago, we have stories about this phenomenon. We take a bit advantage of it because it puts Seljord on the map, but we don't have the tourist machine like in Loch Ness.
One of the region's biggest draws to outsiders is a summer camp suit on the lake. Its manager, who is also a part-time teacher, has a passion for the monster. Although she's never seen the creature, she hopes with all her heart to meet him one day.
My grandfather owned the farm, which now is the camping. My parents, they started to make the camping ground about in the middle of 80s. My husband and I started running it in 2006. I think we are really lucky to have the legend or the sea monster. We are sitting here every morning eating breakfast, and we are looking out and see if there is something. So I really hope that I will one time see the large thing coming up. It's not necessary for me to see the hole with all the bumps, but I can see one large one, and then yes. I hope so. I'm sad about it, but I haven't seen it. Even if I have the view and I really look for it, I always have the explanation of what I see. I have met lots of people who have told me that I've seen it. I've heard people just waiting on the beach, or maybe they're sitting in their caravans and watching out, and then they see something. One of my students, she was at the tower, and she caught it on movie. something strange, really long. She really believes that she has caught a sea serpent. They were watching out, looking, of course, for the sea serpent. I guess all people visiting the tower are doing exactly that. And then she suddenly saw the thing, and she caught it on movie, and they showed it to me, and I think it was really interesting. Too many people which I trust, and I think they are. It's not drunk people from the pub. It's just normal people on vacation or driving, or they say that they have seen something, and I trust that they have seen something.
The one in charge of Selyard's future was luckier than Salfred.
I have seen something, yes. I have seen these. It may look like waves. They are moving like a whale up and down, and I saw like buckles on the sea. So, and then the one in front disappeared, and a new one came up behind. And then, you know, when the head goes down, the first one will disappear, and the buckle will move backwards until it disappears behind. So, you know, it has a special way of swimming. Where did they come from? According to the observations, the only explanation is that it is a serpent, a sea serpent.
Over the centuries, there have been about 500 witnesses claiming to have seen the monster of Lake Selyard. For her part, Salfred Bjorg watches the lake carefully every day in search of clues that could lead to the monster.
The home of the legend, the serpent, Sjøormen. That's the name, Sjøormen. That's what we call it. I'm looking for changings in the water, because now today it was really flat, so it's easy to see if something's changing. I'm looking for different kind of colors. I'm looking for especially waves. I'm looking for, it can be really flat, really quiet, and then something can suddenly comes up. The owner of this camping caravan, and they were sitting here, Per, and the neighbor over there. He saw something white swimming underwater, and then up again, and then straight ahead.
Peter Fjagesund, professor of literature at the University of Telemark, is interested in the folklore surrounding this monster. According to him, the way the monster is said to swim contributes to its mystery.
It's just called the Selyard serpent, usually. I think the most common portrait is really like a big log, like a big, sort of the length of a proper tree, you know, and also with vertical movements, the classical sea serpent movement, which is, of course, rather peculiar because these vertical movements belong to mammals and birds, whereas reptiles and fish move horizontally. So it suggests that it's not a reptile or a fish.
The monster's description varies in small ways depending on the witness, but everyone agrees it has the body of a serpent of about 15 to 25 meters or 50 to 80 feet in length. Its head is a cross between a snake and a horse.
And then it's usually dark or black or brown, something like that, and a sort of thin neck.
I've met people that claim to have seen it, yes, something big, then up to 50 meters, some claim. So there must be quite a view for those who have seen it. And very many people claim to have seen it. Not many say that they have seen the sea serpent, but they have seen something in the lake that is mystical. Some people claim to have seen the head as well, with big black eyes and looking like an elk, a moose, or a cow, or something like that, with the big black eyes. So, quite scary, I guess. It was scary when you grow up hearing about it. I haven't been looking for it, but I've written about people that claim to have seen it, so I've seen their photos. If they have photos, we look at it and print it in the paper, and then it's up to the readers to decide if it's the sea serpent or what it is. There must be something, since so many trustworthy people claim to have seen it.
But in 2011, one particular sighting galvanized public opinion.
We had one story, and at the front page 4 years ago, two people in a chopper flying over the lake. It was worth letting them tell their stories. This is the article of the people in the helicopter that claimed that this was the sea serpent. And they claimed it changed direction when the helicopter flew above it. So they described it as something big that moved a lot of water. It was something they hadn't seen during their 20 years working from the air.
I hope there is a sea serpent, but I don't know. I look out of the windows and sometimes down on the beach, and there is a tower down on the beach. There I can see. I think it's really long and big, and I think it's blue or green or gray, and it has a big mouth with big teeth.
I have seen something twice, which is rather peculiar. It was with an American friend, actually. We were driving along the lake. This was in 1982. The lake was totally calm. And we drove along there and came out of a bend and suddenly saw something swimming about, say, 50 yards from the road, from the shore. And we stopped the car, I walked outside, and there were two big eels swimming side by side in horizontal S's. We thought we could see a sort of fin at the back of both of them. And then they just slowly disappeared. We agreed they would be 4 to 5 meters long, something like that. Definitely a lot bigger than an ordinary eel, which shouldn't be more than 1.50 meters at the very most. And we couldn't really see what it was, but we could see something was happening right there.
In Selyard, it's worth your while to visit the Sea Serpent Tower. Standing 17 meters or 55 feet high, it offers an ideal vantage to keep a lookout for the monster. But for the mayor, Selyard is much more than its lake monster. It is also a city rich in history and in perfect harmony with its natural surroundings.
I'd like to show you Selyard. Selyard is a small town or village. We have 3,000 people, and most of them live here in the center. We don't have much room down in the valley. Most of our area is up in the hills. I like to look up on the mountains, and I like to look down from the mountains, to look on the center here and to look out on the lake. Seljord is a small place, but it's central. It's central between the east and the west of Norway. And many people come to visit Seljord because of the fair that we have in autumn and the festivals in summer. Now behind me, there you can see a classical Norwegian architecture. It's from 1300 and something, so it's very old. It was built to keep food, because there were no refrigerators or anything, so they had to keep the food cool. And then you have these thick walls of logs who made it a bit cool inside. And you can see it is put on top of the rocks, so the mice would not get inside. So it's very valuable. We have to take very good care of it.
The Seljord monster legend dates back several centuries as well. In Norway, a country with a strong maritime tradition, sea monster legends are a part of their folklore.
All we know is that the first reports about its possible existence go back to about 1750. So before then we haven't really got any eyewitness reports or anything, but that's the first story. And that's actually a story about a man who was rowing 2 boats across the lake, very close to where I live actually, with one in tow. And the story says that the boat at the back was toppled by the monster. But then again, that is exactly the time when sea monsters were, along the Norwegian coast at least, were regarded as the most natural thing in the world. Stories about sea serpents go back to antiquity, so that's nothing new. I mean, they've always been around. If you look at medieval maps and so on, these maps are totally littered with sea serpents, sea monsters of various kinds. Norway is actually a very important country when it comes to sea serpents, because it's one of the first places where sea serpents were actually described in a way which we might call scientifically. The 1970s was definitely a time when there were more sightings. That was a sort of transition in a sense, because before the 70s, few people had, locally at least, talked about it, or anyway, had really talked about it. But from then on, it became a kind of national possession, you know. I mean, it's sort of the nation, the country as a whole, began to, got to know about it, and it became a sort of well-known phenomenon. And from then on, I think, again, that the local people who have seen things have been more willing to come forward and talk about it.
In the Seljord region, stories of the monster are passed down from generation to generation.
My great-grandmother was on the beach and she washed her clothes.
And then the serpent came up, and of course she was angry. No, she was afraid, but also maybe more angry.
She kicks it with her washboard.
And it was separated into 2 parts.
Many people see the head.
I guess it was the face was laying still laying at the beach, and the other part went out again.
Stig Ellingsen is preparing to return to the waters where some unexplained force managed to raise his 440-pound boat. This is the first time he's dared to make the trip.
So this is a full-scale of the lake. We are about here now. And we went here, upside, follow this one on the lake, and come over here. And about here, I think it was happening for us. The lake is so mysterious. It's dark and deep. It's a mysterious landscape too. It's very nice to be here. See this part. It's you know, in the summer when the mostly people see something out there.
As you can see now, you will see something on the water. That it's also something that looks like, for some people, sea serpents. Yeah, it was a bird. You can see the waves now. They're quite interesting because it's no waves on the other side, but here you see the waves. And that can also look like serpents.
The lake's reputation rests on more than just its monster. In the summer, people come from all over Norway to fish for trout and perch. But on this autumn morning, it's a different kind of catch that interests Stig and his crew. They are about to arrive at the place where Stig had his remarkable encounter.
It was like this the day when we was driving with the boat. It's like all like this. I have never been bathing in Seljord Lake afterwards.
Oh.
No. And I will not bath there either.
Over here somewhere?
Yeah, right ahead for this, you know, this parking place on the top. You see the signs? Right outside this cabins, we were lifted up 2 times, and the people who see this was on the top of the road where you can see the signs. So they stood up and saw what happened outside. Yeah.
And that's also a famous place for seeing the serpents because it's a nice view there and people standing there and then they sometimes see it.
We didn't believe that it was a sea monster, you know. We don't think about the sea monster when you drive here. But afterwards, when you have driven to it, you think about it.
The average depth of the lake is only 50 meters or 165 feet, but in some places it is much deeper. So there is plenty of room to hide a giant monster.
This is the deepest place in the Seljord Lake. And if you can see the mountains, who is very high here, and it's falling down to the lake. So it's about 110 meters. Yeah. 150 meters. 50, yeah.
And in older days, they used river for transporting timber. And that's also one of the explanations for maybe some of the trees were ending up in the bottom and they were rotten and they're giving away gas. And when bubbles comes up, there can be silence, no waves, but suddenly one of the bubbles from the old trees can make waves.
It's had power. We feel the power in when you get lifted up. It was not any timber, because if it hadn't been timber, we had driven into the propel and everything. But it was not that. As I say, I have no explanation about why that happened. But and it's happened 2 times. Then it's also scary. It was like, you know, slippery. Yeah. It was like soft. Yeah. And then if you have held a snake, yeah, you feel the power in it. It was like that when it was very strange feeling. The first and the second time it was like I feel I see a television the whales from the north of Norway. Yeah. It was like this. You see it and you feel it. It was a very strange feeling.
That's not the explanation I've heard before, that it's a whale.
Yeah, maybe it's a whale.
Yes, that's also a new one. In the corner here, nearby the mountain, there's the place where my great-grandmother washed her clothes with this washing board. sitting into the water and cleaning like they did in older days, and then the sea serpent came up. That's the first story I've heard about the sea serpent.
It would be great if you had seen something, but I think it's too cold. It's in the summer, yeah, it's mostly of the observation. So, but it was very nice for me to get out again and look at the part or the point where we. It's you know, it's a lot of years since I have been there.
I will still eat my breakfast, watching out the view and cross fingers. Hope I see it someday.
This is a part of our history and a part of our living, that we have this sea serpent. That's what Seljord is known for, and it's very nice to have something like this.
Although he's covered many stories about the Seljord monster, journalist Øystein Øygarden remains skeptical. And despite the local enthusiasm for the legend, it's estimated a majority of residents share in his doubt.
I must admit I haven't seen a photo that convinced me that there is a sea serpent. Most of the people in Seljord haven't seen the sea serpent, and if you would ask them yes or no, is there a sea serpent, yes or no, I think most would say no.
Stig's best friend, the witness who believes he saw the monster, is also skeptical.
I've heard the saga of the sea serpent since I was a little girl. I don't believe in it. I'm one of the disbelievers, yeah. There's no logical reason that there should be a sea serpent in Seljord.
I haven't got a clue. I mean, I realize that the chance that there is any kind of big animal of that size in such a small lake is minimal. It's much more obvious to look for another solution, another answer to the question, but what that might be is totally impossible for me to say.
Even if you're seduced by the legend of the Seljord monster, scientists maintain that no satisfactory evidence has been produced to verify its existence.
Most of my work is with freshwater biology, freshwater ecology. I've seen big eels underwater, I've met mink underwater, which gives you a scare when they come full speed towards you. Nothing that would really surprise a scientist. It's a striking feature of all these lake monsters that they never caught, they're very rarely seen, and if they are seen, they're not clearly seen, they're not well documented.
It's not big enough, it doesn't have enough food, no one has ever seen a sea serpent.
From an energetic point of view, animals like this could not possibly exist. There's just not the food base.
I mean, obviously, if there is a monster there must be several, because they have to reproduce. And that's, again, where scientists would argue that this lake is like a bathtub, really. I mean, it's way too small for anything that size. You know, a family of those would need something far bigger.
They're big creatures, they live in very restricted habitats, relatively small lakes, and it would be more than extraordinary if you had such animals living in these lakes and you never seen them properly or you never found them. Another thing is that during the last glaciations, all these lakes, and this one too, was frozen solid for thousands and thousands of years. There's no way any creature could survive that. The ice melted here about 10,000 years ago. And certainly it could not have developed within that very short, from a geological and biological point of view, very short evolutionary time span.
There's a great variety of different observations. Some of them have seen just big waves, others have seen something. I suppose some of the most interesting observations are the ones with something literally sticking out of the lake, something coming up like a head. That's what many people have seen.
It's depicted with a horse head sometimes, or a horse-like head. And that could easily be mistaken for moose, which is very common in this area. And I've seen it many times, swimming moose in lakes. And that could be mistaken as the head of a sea serpent, because usually you just see the head quite raised above the surface.
I believe that the ones who think they've seen a sea serpent believes what they've seen, but I don't believe that they're right. Simple as that.
The easiest solution is simply to say that you imagine things. You create in your mind an image of what it might be.
You believe in something that you've heard before. That kind of could happen also in the Seljorsvatn or with the sea serpent here in Seljord. That the old stories have just glued to your mind.
You interpret whatever you see in the context. You interpret the things you see based on your previous knowledge about these things. And there's also wishful thinking. So there's a number of different reasons why people could believe they've seen something like this.
Is the creature in Lake Seljord more myth than monster? Some residents still prefer to believe in the supernatural aspect of their lake. Professor Peter Fjaggesund embodies this paradox. Although he is tempted to bow to the relentless arguments of science, he still believes he witnessed something supernatural.
My father-in-law was driving, I was sitting next to him, and I had the lake on the right. And I kept seeing these waves which looked a bit odd because they were going in sort of odd directions that didn't quite fit in with a boat that had been sailing on the lake or going on the lake. So, and then we again came out of a bend and saw this thing far out, 400 meters perhaps. But we could see waves being produced, you know, pretty violently. And that went on for a while, and the waves came into the shore, so there was no doubt that something was happening out there. And then again, it just slid under the surface, and we never saw it again. So nobody really knows anything about what's down there.
The monster of Lake Seljord is a seasonal phenomenon, mostly manifesting in the summer. It must be said that in Norway, seasons greatly affect the population. And who knows, maybe the monsters. The summer days in this northern country are very long, and winter, well, winter is a veritable dark age.
Summertime here, you have daylight all night. Not like the sun is not up here. It's not midnight sun, but it hardly goes down just for a couple, 3 hours, and then it will get light again. So summer is when we live, and winter we go to sleep.
It affects you in a sense because you go to work when it's dark. You're inside most of the day, and when you leave from work, it's dark again. So it's basically dark for a few months, you know.
You use the summer and the autumn to collect, you know, everything, food, berries, hunting, everything, and you fill up your store, and then winter comes, and then you concentrate on just living and surviving the winter.
And once the summer comes, Seljord residents keep hope that the monster they've been hearing about since childhood will make an appearance.
Well, when you're born here, it's hard not to hear about it early. So you hear about the sea serpent before you start at school. It's part of our culture and history.
For as long as I can remember, I've heard stories about it because these stories have circulated for years and years. So I didn't grow up exactly next to the lake where I've been living for the last 20 years, but I spent my summers at a lake just across the mountains from there, and I knew about this from childhood. You drive past this lake and you know there is something here. There is this unknown thing down there, and that, I think, touches everyone in a way which gives the whole place a kind of dimension. People came after the 70s, during the 70s and afterwards, people actually came from various places, even from abroad, to actually look for it, you know, the way it's happened in Loch Ness as well. And I think that's a big plus for the whole place.
If you live in Seljord and say that you have seen this monster, they look at you and are you an idiot? They don't want to talk about it. But in the last few years, people have been more open-minded about it and tell about it and show pictures and films and like this.
Stig is a sensible guy, a smart one, and he has an experience with a sea serpent in Seljord. And I think he believes strongly, and I respect him for that.
And Stig is no longer afraid to tell his story or express his opinions, even with his skeptical friends.
She doesn't believe me, so it's, I'm a person who I hope when I tell something, it's for the other part to believe or not to believe what I tell, but I want to be a trustful person. I have to speak more with her so I can tell her about this is true.
You want to convince me?
Yeah. Yes, convince you all the time.
I still don't believe in the sea serpent because I believe what you experienced must have come from a natural place.
And that natural explanation is that we were lifted up. But I don't know what it is, but it's, I think it's an eel alive. Because you feel when something is alive.
Yeah,
it is.
But I agree that it has to be something in the water. But I think that the old stories that have been told since we were little and for centuries about the sea serpent, it kind of infects your brain or makes you...
Yeah.
It sounds like a disease, but it's not what I'm meaning. But
thank you very much. A disease?
No, it's not. But because you have heard the stories, you automatically think that, oh, this must be the serpents. You have a name for what it is.
Yeah.
So you believe that it's a serpent instead of investigating other alternatives.
Yeah. But the time when this happened, I didn't believe in a sea serpent or anything. I have heard the stories also.
I agree that there has to be something in the Seljord because of all the sightseeing and all the pictures and all the strange phenomena. I think there's something there. There has to be something there. But whether it's the water is behaving strangely because of currents in the water, or if it's other creatures, or there has to be something natural. But of course, there's something in the water. Many people have seen it. But that doesn't make it a serpent. That's the difference. It can't be 200 years old. It has to have kids, and it has to be a family. I don't think it's not big enough space for big creatures or several big creatures here. I haven't seen it and I haven't felt it. But I do believe that the people who have seen it believes themselves that they've seen it. I'm a person who has a difficulty believing in anything unless I touch it and I can feel it and can see it.
I don't have any hope that she will believe in it, but I think if she experienced by herself, okay, then you come back and say, yes, I believe in it now.
Whether it is myth or monster, the residents of Seljord all agree that the legend of the lake monster has had a positive impact on the area. In 1989, even the city's coat of arms was modified to honor the creature.
Logo, municipality logo, the sea serpent. So we are a bit proud of it. Yes. And some people say that this is something the people here they have invented it for the tourism. But no, not like Loch Ness. They have been very good. We have not. Because we are modest people and no big tourist machine at all.
I think most people in Seljord are proud of the myth about the sea serpent. But and not all the people believe in it, but the myth they are proud of because it has made Seljord known all over the country and abroad as well.
Seljord now within Norway is well known for being the place which houses lake monster, right? And some people might sort of feel a bit ashamed about that and sort of feel that it's sort of a bit embarrassing. But I think lots of people think the opposite. It's something to be proud of. Whenever I meet people from other parts of Norway, their first question is usually, have you seen the monster?
Sometimes I go to other towns and speak to people, and where are you from? They ask me. I say I'm from Seljord. Have you seen the monster? No, I haven't. And then they laugh about it and make jokes about it. And I usually reply that, how many other towns of 2,000 people do you know the name?
I think it's attractive to talk about the sea serpent because it's folklore and it's a myth. And it's exciting. It's the same thing as the trolls or any supernatural phenomena. It's exciting, really.
Besides, Seljord has more than one monster legend to offer visitors. It is a city known for its gnomes, a popular legend in Norway that amuses tourists.
The gnome in Norwegian, a gnome is called tusse. And they are small, living under the surface of the earth. And in the old days, most people, I think, believed in the gnomes here in Norway. Here is a spot where there's no grass. There the gnome went down. At least that's what the saying is.
The mystery of the Seljord monster is always on the minds of locals who share stories and exchange theories. Stig Ellingsen admits to being stunned and hopes one day to understand what happened to him that fateful summer day on Lake Seljord.
I don't know what happened that day. I'm not sure. We didn't see anything, but we was lifted up 2 times, and that was enough for me to think that is something big down there.
An unknown animal that is in the lake. That's the only explanation I can find.
This monster to me is sort of this fantastic phenomenon of something that we can't explain, and I like it that way. In a sense, I very much hope that it will never be explained properly, because as long as it retains its secrecy, its mystery, there's something to sort of ponder about and think about for everyone.
I think it's a good story, but from a biological point of view, it's not possible. From a scientist point of view, if you really found a creature like this existing in a small, relatively small like this, it would be like a sensation, a Nobel Prize. It would be the most fantastic thing you could ever discover.
I have never seen something that I think, wow, that's the sea monster, that's the sea serpent. So I'm still looking for that.
And it's nice to have the mystery of that we have a sea serpent in the lake. And of course we wish all people to come and look for it, because it's really great to be here and look for it, and maybe you can see it sometime.
I think it's a good place for a monster, really.
Iceland, a country like no other, emerged in the center of the North Atlantic before it was settled over 1,000 years ago by Norwegian Vikings. Imagine 300,000 people living on a territory as big as France. The island itself has been shaped by volcanic and geothermal forces, active now as ever, making it a site of incomparable majesty. Among this country's natural treasures, Osterland, also known as the Eastern region, is a huge valley formed over millennia by glacial erosion and through which the Lagerflot River meanders, fed directly from Iceland's largest glacier. The central part of the river widens at the city of Eyjólfsstaðir. forming the lake called Logorin, or Lagerflot, which at first glance has the appearance of being just another tranquil body of water. However, this large lake with a depth of over 100 meters or 320 feet hides a mystery. For several centuries, a giant worm known as Lagerflotermurin was sighted in the lake. Living witnesses number in the dozens. Recently, one of them even managed to capture images of the creature.
Já, maður hefur alltaf trúað að ormurinn væri hérna, Lagerflotermurin væri í fljótinu.
They saw something move up and down, humps or something.
People have been seeing these kinds of humps coming up from the lake surface. Well, we have the records of some kind of a monster living in the lake. The first record is from 1345.
Many hundred years ago, the worm was believed to be very dangerous.
I think there's a creature there. There's something alive down there.
I always have a camera in my car when I travel around the lake if I would see something.
I would describe it as something very huge. It's enormous in size. I mean, every child here in the area can tell you the story about the monster.
I think the Lagerflotermurin is really big, ugly and scary.
Einhver hreyfingu þarna í ánni. Þetta svona hlikkaðist til og frá eins og snákur.
Ég var bara að fara til Bjartisar, bara í heimsókn. Því það langt sinni kom hingað og við varum bara að spjalla eitthvað og við vorum eitthvað í símanum og svo sást þetta bara og ég tók þetta upp.
En kannski alvöru? Þannig að svo ferum við að horfa á þetta og svona getum ekki átt á okkur á því almennilega hvað þetta er. Þannig og...
The worm killed by poison or fire people.
Sko, þegar ég sá þetta, þá trúði ég svona meira á þetta.
Do you believe in the worm? Yes, absolutely. I believe in it. I know it exists.
The Lagerflotermurin lives in Lagerflot, the third largest lake in Iceland, spanning 53 square kilometers or 20 square miles. Filled with sediment from the glacier that feeds it, the lake's gray color and opacity have helped keep this mystery alive.
This lake is, it's deep. It goes down to at least 112 meters. The glacier dug it down in the ice age.
It has a very, very much volume because, well, the surface of the lake, the altitude of the surface of the lake is about 20 meters above sea level. But the bottom of the lake, well, where it is deepest, it is more than 112 meters deep. We have this 80 meters below sea level of the lake, and that is rather unusual in Iceland.
It's not transparent, as many lakes are, because it's glacier water. So I believe there is a creature down there.
And on the bottom of the lake, also because of the glacier river that runs into it, we have a very thick layer of clay, of sediment from the centuries that the glacier rivers have, washed into it.
When glaciers melt in Icelandic mountains, rivers filled with sediment carve a path to the ocean. Most of these rivers are not navigable because of the violence of the current, but there are exceptions like the Lagerflot. Among the residents who live around the erosion basin, the famous Lagerflot Lake, everyone knows at least one person who has seen the terrible creature emerge from its surface.
The people that has told me the story of the worm are people I trust. very much. My neighbor, Valdemar, he's a very down-to-earth person, and he was working with several other men, putting a telephone cable in the lake, and they had a lot of trouble with the worm because he bit the telephone cable.
Það var aldrei neitt vafi á því eftir við sáum hvers konar meðferð kapallinn hefði fengið að sko þarna var eitthvað óhemju sterkt og mikið afl sem gat gert þetta. Kapallinn var, eins og ég sagði, svo sterkur, sérstaklega framleiddur. Þetta kallað armering, þessi styrking utan á kaplanum og ekkert venjulegt afl getur gert þetta. Þetta eins og að vefja upp járnkarla að gera þetta. Svoleiðis að við verðum bæði hræddir og hissa þegar við áttuðum okkur á því hvað við höfðum gert. Ekki neinum vafa það að þarna var sá gamli á ferðinni.
It was totally unexplainable how it could be twisted so much because it was so strong that they thought it was impossible, and the technicians there, they just had no explanation of it other than this very good explanation that it had been in contact with the monster, and the monster didn't like this cable to go over its back.
Very young by the standards of Earth's timeline, Iceland emerged from the bottom of the Atlantic some 20 million years ago as the result of volcanic eruptions. Inhabitants live under a constant threat from 130 active volcanoes, which may explain why this state is the least densely populated country in Europe, with only 3 people per square kilometer.
We are here in Iceland, actually in the eastern part of Iceland, or East Iceland as we call it. And this part of Iceland is renowned for a very good weather. Most Icelanders know it for that they want to come here for summer holidays because of the good weather. We are here in the valley of Fljótsdalur, or the Fljótsdalur Valley, and through it runs this river, which is a glacier river coming from all the way from the Vatnajökull glacier. And so that runs here into the river, and the rivers run into the lake Lagarfljót, which is actually a river all the way to the ocean, but, well, a river lake. Well, we have the records of some kind of a monster living in the lake. The first record is from 1345. So it's quite old, and it's mentioned actually in all the annals or the chronicles of Iceland through the centuries. Some sightings every century.
We have very well-written annals through the centuries, and there you can read about the worm that has been seen various places in the lake, and by whom and when and how.
The presence of religious missions allowed Iceland to keep a fairly accurate record of its history. Icelandic annals make explicit mention of the appearance of a monster here and there over the centuries, beginning in 1345.
I was surprised to see how much was written about it. We have a lot of descriptions of old parishes in Iceland that also tell us about the life of the people and the nature. And even there, you have several times stories about the worm.
Mainly, well, people at least tried to connect it with that, okay, if the monster was seen here at the Lake Lagarfljót, people could expect something very dreadful to happen in the nature. Some eruptions, earthquakes, or a very hard winter following. So it was this belief that it occurred only when something dreadful was going to happen. We have a tale about the origin of this monster. this beautiful little tale about the girl and the gold ring.
Or the legend about the Lagerfljótsormur is very, very old, and it's in every folk tale collection you have in Iceland.
Once was a little girl, and her mother gave her a little golden ring.
And she put the gold in a box, and she was told to put a little worm under the gold, and then it would grow.
So she put the worm on the gold, hoping the gold would grow. But the gold didn't grow, just the worm.
It was a giant worm, and she was so afraid, and she threw the box in the lake.
And then it became this monster that attacked farmers and destroyed the harvest for the farmers.
Icelanders asked some Finns to come and help us. They came and they tell that they met this big monster out close to the sea that was like a big seal. And then they met this big skate with this, I think, 9 tails with poison claws. And one of the Finns, he got hurt by this poison claws, so he had to stop. And the name of that place is Finnstaðanes. It means where the Finn stopped. So the story lives in the names of the surroundings.
It is said that the Finns, the magicians from North Norway that came here, or from Lapland, that they managed, after a very hard struggle, they managed to chain it down on the head and the tail. So for that reason, you only see the humps coming up.
Well, it has been kept alive because people has been seeing it so often through the centuries.
We have the same descriptions from people that, well, even not have read the tale.
According to legend, an evil worm thrown into the lake slowly grew into a terrifying giant monster. Skuli Gunnarsson is the director of the cultural center of the region. He has dedicated part of his life to preserving the myth of the Lagerfljótsormurin and cataloging its appearances from oldest to newest.
This is actually the first map that was made of Iceland, where it is, well, a little bit similar to how it really looks like, with all the fjords and the peninsulas. And so there is, about the Lagerfljót Lake, it's written a kind of a warning that says something like this, that in this lake there is a living creature, a big creature that occurs when some dreadful things are going to happen. A dangerous monster, actually, it says there in the Latin. So it is written there, and it was copied then to other maps of Iceland for centuries.
When walking along the lake, Skuli cannot help but scan the horizon. Many witnesses claim to have seen the monster while they were driving their vehicle. In response, Skuli has installed information signs in areas where the creature has been thought to emerge.
This is actually an information board put up by the Worm Association, and it explains a little bit the story behind the worm, but mainly it's pointing out the places where something peculiar has been seen. And we are just taking out few places where we have the descriptions from written papers, from the annals, from the chronicles of some peculiar sightings. Well, we can for example take the triangle with the letter D. That is a sighting from 1965, when the staff here working in the forestry in the forest, in the Hallandsstaðir forest, they saw the worm, or at least they thought they saw the worm, and they actually went all the way, well, they saw it there, and they went all the way to here, where we are standing now, and there it disappeared. It seemed to be swimming. It seemed to be swimming upstream. And there were coming some humps up, but when they got here, at this place where it is a very good panorama over the lake, it disappeared.
These forest workers were under orders from Sigurdur Blöndal, who led the National Forest Office. His daughter Sigrun, a historian, has pulled archives from the time period to try to understand what happened.
I think it was in 1962 that my father was looking out of the window where he lived, and suddenly he saw something rise from the lake, and he called my cousin that was there too, and my brother. They saw something move up and down, humps or something, move up and down for 10 minutes, and they all three watched it through the window very clearly. And my father is he's a scientific person. He's very pragmatic. He was a forest warden, so it was very clear to him that it was a worm he saw, and he's never denied that. He's always convinced that he saw the worm.
Ég og Bjarni Stilljó og Ásdís vorum á leiðinni hérna upp eftir frá Iceland. Og Ásdís var að koma í heimsókn. Þegar ég kem hérna yfir hæðina fyrir utan, þá sé ég eitthvað á fljótinu og...
Stelpur, sjáu þarna. Er þetta lagfljósárvörður þarna?
Segi eitthvað við stelpuna að sjáu þarna lagfljósárvörður.
Ég man ekki alveg, en sko við vorum allan á leiðinni heim hingað og við vorum bara eitthvað svona í bílnum á leiðinni hingað og vorum bara að tala saman og eitthvað sleiðis og svo sáum við þetta. Og við keyrðum svona lengra þangað til að sjá þetta betur. Þannig að ég hélt að þetta væri bara svona ormur svona eins og lifra eða eitthvað neginn. En þú veist, ég sá ekki beint hvernig þetta var, sko. Það var bara eitthvað svona gusa upp á vatninu þegar ég tók þetta upp hana.
Við erum bara áfram og horfum á þetta og þannig að þær taka upp, eða Ásdís tekur upp þarna símann og tekur myndir af þessu. Þannig að, þannig að við teljum að við séum lagfljósárvörðinn þarna.
Ég hélt bara strax að það var lagfljósárvörðurinn, sko. Nei, ekki fyrir en ég setti þetta á YouTube og bara þegar fólk voru að tala með mig þetta. Hvað þetta?
In 2012, a creature that looks like a snake is filmed swimming against the current upstream of the lake, just outside the house of a sheep farmer. With the help of his nephew who explained how to work the camera, this farmer managed to capture some very disturbing images.
And the telephone rings, and it's my uncle telling me that the lagfljótsworm is trying to swim ashore. And I think to myself that this is probably just some debris floating in the river. And I just tell him to take pictures of it. And he wants me to help him to take a video of it. That was how he was able to capture video of the thing.
Hringdi í sjónvarpsfréttamanninn og ætlaði að fá hann til að taka mynd af þessu fyrirbæri, en þá var hann í fríi. Og ég átti myndavél en kunni ekki á hana. Hann kenndi mér í gegnum símann á vélina og ég tók mynd af þessu fyrirbæri þarna í ánni sem að ég tel og mun halda með við að hafi verið ormurinn eða þá afkvæmi ormsins.
They weren't very interested at first. They asked me to send them the video, but they did not put it on the 7 o'clock news in television. They only put it on the web. And a few days later, the editor of the web, roof.is, calls me up and tells me that the web is almost crashing because thousands of Japanese people are watching the video. And so then we realized that maybe this was something big. And then we did a television news story on the video, but the video and the worm was not the main thing. The main thing was the attention that the video had gotten from Japan and also from millions of people that had watched it on YouTube.
In a few days, millions of users from around the world share the link and look at the images captured by the farmer. But even so, some of the locals remain wary.
The first reaction here in the area was, okay, this is some stunt. They've been planting this there in the river and making this look like a monster or something like that. But I knew, of course, that couldn't be the fact. I mean, he wasn't even able to be ready with a camera.
So after the video got so famous online, camera crews and newsrooms from around the world started sending people to Iceland, and at times it was almost crowded here with reporters, and I was constantly answering questions, helping people out, directing people who to talk to. I was busy because of it, and my uncle as well. He was very happy. Suddenly he was world famous, and the farmers from around, they were envious, and he was the talk of the town.
Já, ég tel með góðri samvisku geta trúað á Lagarfljótsorminn. Eftir þetta hefur reyndar alltaf trúað á hann. Ég búinn að sjá orminn, taka mynd af honum. Og því ættu menn ekki geta trúað á orminn. Jafnvel þó menn hafi ekki séð hann. Menn trúa nú á Guð. Hafa menn séð hann allir?
A country of legends, Iceland has been the land of elves and trolls since the passage of the Vikings in the Middle Ages. But the Lagerfljótturmjórinn is something else.
The legend of the worm is, I think, more alive in our thoughts than maybe the elves and trolls. You look at the elves and trolls more like a folk tale.
Maybe you know the Icelanders, they believe in elves, they believe in trolls, they believe in hidden people and hidden things, and some people, they see it, and I believe that they see something. If it's only in their heads or if they are really seeing something, I can't tell.
But my father has seen the worm in Lagerfljót, and my brother has seen it, and my neighbor has seen it. So it's you don't. It's hard to deny the legend, the story, when people stand before you, in front of you, and tell you that they have seen the worm.
Já, maður hefur alltaf trúað að ormurinn væri hérna, Lagerfljótsormurinn væri í fljótinu, en eftir að sé þetta þá bara trúir maður því enn frekar að hann sé þarna. Já, það hefur breytt kannski þannig að maður samfærist bara frekar.
Ég mér dreymir ekkert þetta, ég bara hugsa út í þetta svona, og svo horfi ég oftast svona lengra það sem þetta var svona.
In recent years, several theories have been advanced to explain what the dozens of witnesses believe they saw in the Lagerfljót Lake. Skarfedin Pårðsson is a biologist at the University of Iceland. He studies reindeer populations and is intimately familiar with the lake, which he encounters on a daily basis as part of his research. And although he remains skeptical, his camera is never far away.
So when I drive around the lake, I always have the camera because I'm always thinking about seeing something that could be related to Lagerfljótsworm sightings, something like that. And but I'm not expecting to see a live creature. Although some people talk about that the creature is somewhere between the real world and the spiritual world. I don't believe that a real creature exists, but I believe that many people, they sense or feel something that they say is a creature. I can't believe it because the creature have to eat, you have to breathe, it have to breathe, and I don't think it's an environment for a creature to do that in this lake. If it's a fish-like creature, it have gills. But if it's something like a reptile, like Nessie in Scotland, Nessie is, people that believe in Nessie believed it was a plesiosaurus, a reptile. But they became extinct 60 million years ago. The oldest rock in Iceland is only about 15 million years old. And the lake is young. So it's difficult to see what kind of creature should live in the lake.
It would seem, therefore, to be impossible for a giant creature to survive in Lagerflöt Lake. But thanks to the high quantity of sediment and glacial debris found in the lake, conducting a proper survey of what exactly is in the water is difficult.
The water running into it is a glacial water, so there's a lot of floating sediment. The lake go down to more than 100 meters, and the sediment is very thick. Up there, it's 100 meters thick. And in the sediment, we have vegetation coming from the wood on the sides of the lake.
This vegetation trapped in sediment ferments in the depths of the lake and can release pockets of gas that then rise to the lake's surface.
So maybe we have some small earthquake or something happen, and the bubble goes up, and then they look like a humpback on the water.
Gas sometimes comes up from the bottom of the lake like it's erupting. Gas can erupt from the bottom of the lake, so it looks like something is rising from the lake, but it's actually just air and leaves and debris.
If you go back, I think some 400 or 500 years ago, narrow-minded public people, when they see something strange, like in this lake, the worm is not the only creature here. There's a big seal monster out there, and then we have a skate, the fish, with tails, and on the tails we have a poison claws. And I think it's not hard to imagine that maybe a walrus visit this place out there, and some local people that had never heard about walrus saw something with big teeth, and they tell others and so on, and it changed to a monster.
But it's also in our subconsciousness, I would say, because we have, just as in other places where you have some kinds of tales and some mysterious things, you have these taboos, usually. One thing that if you go to a person here in the region and you ask, can I have a trout from the lake? Or you will probably get the answer, no, the trout from this Lagerflöt lake, it's unedible. It's so bad tasting, and so you don't want that. But that is not the fact. I mean, the trout from the lake, the meat of the trout is a little bit lighter because of the color of the lake, but it's not bad fish to eat. And then the other thing is that why are no boats on the lake? You haven't seen any boats on the lake. Then you get the explanation, oh, the waves of the lake, they are extremely sharp. They are much sharper on this lake than any other lake you can find. So you shouldn't go out on a boat to this lake.
I think that in Japan, as in Iceland, there are a lot of myths. And I believe that when you have a monster video, you have to have a myth to go along with it. And here, that happened, and I think that explains why this video that Hjörtur captured has gotten so much attention, international attention, and maybe especially from Japan, because they have similar myths. At some point, a TV crew came in from the United States, and they did all sorts of tests. I think that the tests that the American crew made don't prove that the video that Hjörtur took is fake. It only proves that debris floating in the river can look like a monster is swimming, but that doesn't tell us anything about what Hjörtur actually captured on his film.
And what about the strange phenomenon captured on camera in Birgir Brageson's car?
The video that the girl shot of some phenomenon, something happening on the lake, I think it's just some weather phenomenon. It's a little cyclop going over the water. We see it inland where it moves over land, taking up dust, and so I think we have a natural explanation.
I believe that we have two types of worms in the lake. There's the old 600 or 700 year old giant monster that might be living there, but I doubt it. And then there is the undiscovered organism. I don't believe in the 600 or 700 year giant monster, but I don't want to rule out that there might be an undiscovered life form living in the silt at the bottom of the lake.
Ultimately, until proof of Lagerflötermuren's existence is produced, strange phenomena observed on the lake will continue to fuel belief in the legends of this rich region of Iceland. The children of the city of Eyjólfsstaður have a particularly fertile imagination. How could it be otherwise, given that their school is located just across from Lake Lagerflöt?
I think young children, they believe very clearly in it. They absolutely believe that the worm is alive. And I asked my son that is 8 years old, do you believe in the worm? Yes, absolutely, I believe in it. I know it exists. And he described it for me, what it looked like. So it's very, very clear in his mind.
It's important because it's part of the community and part of our history, and it's linked with the imagination of the kids. When they do arts or drawings, something like that, they often draw the worm, and it helps them with their imagination, and it comes out in that way. And we use the saga when we teach them about the area, history of the area.
It starts with there was a little girl, and her mother gave her a little gold ring. That she opened the box and she was very afraid. Then the worm began to grow, and he grew bigger and bigger. Here he threw the box in the lake. And now here, this is for the end of the story.
I think it's very important because when I was a child, I was born here in the neighborhood. We really believed there were a monster in the lake. And we always were beware of it, and it was like part of the nature and very exciting. We are trying to keep it alive because, of course, it's nice to have a monster because today it's not eating people anymore. So you don't need to be afraid of it.
This thing is made from clay, and this is special for me because my daughter was very young. She was in second class, And she decided to make lagafljótsorm. And I did not tell her to make lagafljótsorm. It was her decision. It's not big deal. It's not big deal. There are trees here around us. And it's also not big deal. There's mountain and there's lake and there are houses and we have this environment. And we have also this creature in the lake, and it's not big deal. It's just a common thing in our life.
The Lagerflöturmuren plays an important role in the cultural and folk identity of this part of the country, where residents treat the mythical creature with great respect. There is no talk here of making a promotional or commercial effigy to attract tourists.
Main reason I think Icelandic people come to visit Fljótsdalshérað is it's so green. We have the trees here that most part of Iceland, they don't have as much trees as we do here. People love to visit because it's a great destination for families and it has a beautiful scenery. People travel to the area. They do know that the lake is home of the Lagerfljóts worm because it's a really popular children's story and probably most of Icelandic people have heard the story at some point in their life.
And we use it as our symbol for the municipality. And that tells us how important he is for us. And you also see artworks, several artworks in Egilsstaðir and this area that are formed as a worm.
The poem is about the Lagerfljóts worm. It's tied to Húsatangi over there where the poem lived. So it was a very real thing to him, or at least he think a lot about it. And my daughter took this poem and made a tune and played it on a piano, and my wife and second daughter performed it in the church in Egilsstaðir last year. I think it's just an indication of that everybody knows about the worm. Everybody looks at the lake when they are driving around it, hoping to see something or expecting. So the worm is very much alive today.
Despite its seclusion, the valley in Iceland's eastern region attracts more and more tourists each year. The city of Egilsstaðir is essential since it is the only major metropolitan area around the lake. And it could be that the images of the giant worm circulated on social networks partly explain the recent increase in the number of visitors.
Tourists are coming to Iceland mainly because of the nature. That is the statistics says so. And then the second thing is the culture and heritage. But people here, I think they realize that, okay, maybe people are more interested in something like our worm monster than we thought, actually.
Meet the Locals is a program that we are doing, Tanni Travel, with local people in East Iceland, where we invite people to come as guests and saying goodbye as friends. We invite people to local homes where they can either have dinner or coffee and a chat with local people how it is to live here in the area. And our tour around the lake, life around the monster lake, offers you to see the monster if you're lucky or not lucky, and to meet local people and ask them by yourself how it is to live by the lake.
Eyjólfsstaður is also the site of several annual festivals celebrating the cultural heritage of eastern Iceland. The possible existence of a strange creature in Lake Lagerfljót provides a pretext to hold the region's most important annual festival, Ormteiti, which opens with a big party. Each August, visitors from across the country come to attend the parades, concerts, and cultural events that animate the city for an entire week. Whatever reason brings you to this unique area, make sure to always have a camera on hand.
The tourists that visit the lake area through us are mostly from the UK and America. But we also have a lot of people from Germany. And we get many requests from both Canada, we've had requests from Mexico, Australia.
Nei, ég hef aldrei séð skrímslið og ekkert sem að tengist því annað en þetta. En frá því ég kom hérna fyrir meira en hálfri öld, þá hef ég oft heyrt talað skrímslið. Ég hef lesið margar gamlar sögur skrímslið.
Ormurinn, hann menningarsögulegt fyrirbæri hér slóðir. Og ég held að trúi margir, flestallir héraðsbúar, að ormurinn sé til.
When you come to the lake area here, or the lake district here, it's, I think you should always be aware that there might be something moving under the surface of the lake, and just very, very occasionally it occurs above the surface. So you should always have your camera ready.
Östersund is located in the middle of Sweden, in the middle of Scandinavia, in the northern part of Europe.
Nicknamed the center of Sweden, the city of Östersund is considered unique. Its history is closely linked to the presence of the Vikings, who colonized the region 1,000 years ago. Today, it is the only major Swedish city that is not located on the seaside, exposing visitors to a landscape very different from the rest of the country.
A very wild region with very much mountains, snowy mountains, and it's more about the outdoor life.
It's called the winter town, so most of the events that happen in this town is during the winter. There are generally events out on the lake because it's frozen, so you go out on the ice and you can go like hockey, both skating and skiing, cross-country skiing.
Skiing, everyone knows skiing. Skiing has a good reputation. It's good to be famous for good skiing.
But whatever the season, a strange mystery occupies the minds of Östersund residents, as it has for centuries. A mystery as impenetrable as the murky waters that house it.
Östersund is a town located by a lake called Storsjön. It's a huge lake, the 5th largest in Sweden. But it has more water than some of the other bigger ones because of the depth of the lake.
This is a very big lake. Part of it is very deep, and it's dark water. You just have to go 1 or 2 meters under surface, and it's completely it's getting really dark, and at the bottom it's black.
This body of water came into existence at the end of the last ice age, over 9,000 years ago. It extends over 464 square kilometers, or 180 square miles, and reaches depths of up to 74 meters, or 242 feet. The mysterious sightings in the lake have led some to speculate that such a body of water could provide a suitable habitat for a giant animal species. This ancient mystery has given the place a special character. Popular legends from past centuries and eyewitness accounts of recent years suggest that a creature unknown to science inhabits Stursen Lake. It is even believed that if its existence could be proved, mankind's understanding of science would forever be transformed.
It's a huge animal. It's not something that is normal, that would exist in the lake, in any lake. This is huge.
Oh, there!
The testimonies and sightings of strange activity on the lake are so numerous that very few dare rule out the possibility that something unknown is living in Stursen Lake. But everyone has their own theory about the beast's shape.
I would describe the Great Lake monster as somewhat snake-like. It seems to be a long animal that just goes up and down in the water.
Like this. It moves very, very fast. It's about more than 10 meters, and it's black, gray, shifting.
Humps. And probably it has a head that looks like a dog or maybe a horse.
Almost like something between a snake and a dragon.
Maybe a cousin to some plesiosaur type of animal.
From the dinosaur times, with a long neck and a small head and a big body.
I saw something over the surface I can't explain. Big, black, beautiful, in the same time scaring. So, of course, it is something, but what it is, we don't know actually.
Lake Stursen, the fifth largest in Sweden, has not changed much since the last ice age. Except for a few months in the summer, it spends most of the year covered in a thick layer of ice. In warmer weather, boaters and fishermen frequent its waters. Almost all of the inhabitants of Östersund, and even most of Sweden, believe that a mysterious creature lives beneath the lake's surface.
People think about it and talk about it, not every day, but absolutely every summer, because every summer someone sees it and it's in the newspaper that someone saw it. So I would say it's like a conversation piece every year. It's always there.
Yeah, I think it's very well known here in this region. Most people know someone that have seen it or talks about it. And it's the only lake monster we have in Sweden, so it's well known in Sweden too.
Mostly it's maybe 1 or 2 articles in the newspaper every year about people have seen the monster. And of course, everyone doesn't go to the press to tell about their observations. So I would say maybe there are around 5 or 10 people every year who claim to have seen the monster, but not everyone is so open about it.
Is it to alleviate the mystery that the Swedes gave the monster a name? In English, the beast is simply called Storsi, but the Swedes have their own word for it, named after the image they have of it.
Stor, sjö, odjuret. It's 3 words. Stor for big, sjö for lake, and odjur for a beast.
My name is Göte Norlander. I saw this Great Lake monster at 1982. Ja, jag behövde ett specialverktyg för jag höll på att mekade hemma då och for ner till min verkstad och där träffade jag min hyresvärd som äger huset som jag hyrde lokalen i. Vi pratade och tittade lite grann efter stranden då, lite längre ifrån oss. 75-80 meter ifrån oss så ser vi plötsligt någonting som ligger flytande vid stranden, strax intill stranden. Och det var som en timmerstock det, som var lite räfflad om vi säger så. Lite knulig som vi säger i Sverige, lite ojämn. Nåväl, det gick en liten stund så tittade vi lite längre utåt och då kommer plötsligt upp en båge ur vattnet. Den här bågen var 4-5 meter lång. Det var 60-70 centimeter hög och den var mörkgrå, nästan mot svart med guldbruna stick i då. Guldbruna punkter. Och då är den här bågen i vattnet då. Nu vart vi väldigt upphetsade, både Viktor och jag, så att, men vad var det där? Så då sa jag till Viktor att, men nu du minsann Viktor, nu såg vi allt storsjöodjuret. Nej, det här pratar vi inte så mycket om, säger han då. Så då höll vi tyst i 3-4 år då, men sen så tyckte vi det var lika bra att prata om och berätta om det här, för det var en verkligt spännande upplevelse.
I saw storsjöodjuret, the Great Lake monster, in 1977 on August the 10th. I was 16 years old and I was on my way home on my bicycle. And I was looking down because I wanted to see if there was coming a car. So I was doing like this and there was no car, but just for a split 2 seconds, I managed to see something huge rise in the water down there. It was black and it came up like this, and the size of a Volkswagen and black in the water. So I thought, what was that? But to the left of me, I had 3 gentlemen aged 40 to 50, and they were very upset, and they were talking loudly and pointing and like this. And I realized then, well, I had probably seen what they call storsjöodjuret. I just had a glimpse of it, but as any kid would have done, I went down to the lake again, and then I had the second sighting.
40 minutes later, Michael was walking along the shore when he saw the creature up close. It was less than 10 meters or 33 feet from him. His memories are still very vivid, even 35 years later.
I could see it was like 2 to 3 meters long, above the surface like this much. And it swam not like this or like this, but straight forward, like a boat turned upside down, which is a very common description of this animal that many people have seen, that you find again and again in articles. The skin of the animal was dark, sort of black, I think, and it reminded me of whale skin, sort of. It had no hair or anything like that. And the speed of it was, if you jog like this, that was the speed. So I walked in a similar pace and for some distance, and I got this idea, and I'm not proud of it, but I'm not going to lie about it. I thought I wanted to see more than this. I wanted to see the head. So I picked up a small rock like this, and I figured that if I hit it on the back, it might look up. That was the thinking of a 16-year-old. And I threw the stone.
But he missed his target. For several minutes, Michael observed the movements of the beast on the surface of the water while it moved away from the shore.
And then a boat was approaching from beneath the bridges, and then it dove. I was not afraid when I saw it. I was safe on land, but I wouldn't have been wanting to be in a boat at that moment, I can tell you that.
Most accounts of strange phenomena on Lake Stursun are reported by residents on the shore. But from time to time, a sighting is made on the water, and such encounters take on a whole new dimension.
My name is Evert Festin. I have seen the Great Lake monster from about 3-4 meters distance. En sen kväll i juli 1994 var jag och min fru ute och uttrade. På den som är sträckt så går det på en fisk och jag börjar på att dra in den. Och när jag kanske var halvvägs in med fisken så går det på någonting på linan som går rakt ner i vattnet. Och då åker båten baklänges. Och det som drog båten då var alltså starkare än motorn. Och då släppte jag den första linan och koncentrerade mig på den här där det var någonting stort som var på. Och jag hade en känsla av att jag halade mig efter linan, inte att jag drog in. Sen i nästa stund, det som kommer upp är större, längre än båten. Och båten är 4,30 meter lång. Och det första intrycket var att det var en lång ko som låg i vattnet, men jag såg aldrig något huvud på den. Och det var mörkt på ena sidan och det var ljus på den andra. Och på den ljusa sidan då så ser jag två liksom spröt som rör sig sakta mot varandra. De är ungefär 1 meter långa och det var som en andningsrörelse. Och då är det här djuret bara någon meter bakom propellern. Och vi var i chock och jag trodde aldrig vi skulle överleva om det kom närmare. Jag trodde vi skulle kantra. Och jag vet inte hur länge vi satt där i båten, men det som hände det var att det ryckte till i linan och lekanet uppe vid huvudlinan gick sönder. Och så det som var på kroken åkte iväg med våblen och lina. Och vi såg hur det bubblade på vattnet när det sjönk ner. Vi var i en chock. And I don't know how long time we waited sitting there.
Not wanting to damage his career, Evert waited until after his retirement before publicly disclosing his experience. If his story is to be believed, he and his wife are the witnesses who have come closest to the creature. That was also the last time Evert's wife ever ventured onto the lake. The history of the Great Lake Monster, or Storsea, goes as far back as the history of Sweden. One of the oldest references to its existence is found on a runestone dating from the Middle Ages.
During the Viking Age, Östersund wasn't founded, so the center of this part was the island in the lake called Frösön, and that's where we have all the remains from the Viking Age, the graves. We have the runic stone. That's the only one in this area. It was carved some time between 1050, 1070, we think.
There are several runestones in Scandinavia, most of which recall the epic battles and legendary figures who have marked the history of the peninsula. The rune in Östersund commemorates a turning point in the development of the region.
The runestone tells the story about who built the bridge between Frösön Island and what is now Östersund, and also about the Christianization of these lands, which took place around that time.
But what intrigues most is the engraving's depiction.
The picture of the dragon itself as the only dragon depicted on a rune stone in Scandinavia. Could mean something, we don't know. Could be related to some ancient Viking folklore or something like that, which is very interesting.
And if it is often true that a picture is worth 1,000 words, in this case it seems to be worth 1,000 questions. In the 17th century, the first mention of a sea monster in Lake Stursun appears in religious annals. From there, the beast enters local folklore.
A vicar in the 1650s, I think, was the first person to write something about it.
Without knowing it, the vicar gave birth to a legend that has inspired fear in local residents for centuries.
And it was two trolls who was cooking near the sea, and suddenly it was a big bang. And a cat was jumping up from the cooking and just jumped down to the Great Lake. Then we know that people talk about this for more than 400 years ago.
250 years later, the beast bursts forth from the world of fairy tales and legends to make a surprise appearance on the surface of the lake, in front of one of the region's most powerful political figures, no less.
In 1894, our Member of Parliament, Jöns Bromé, claimed he had seen the monster along with some of his friends. And they decided to pursue it. So they took some guns and some boats trying to catch the animal, but it was going too fast and it just disappeared down to the depths. And he actually told the press that he had seen the animal. And after that, we can see the rising of the observations of the animal, because of course, if a person with that high ranking in the society says he has seen the Great Lake monster, it must exist.
That is probably the one time that had a real window open when people were fearless. They talked about it. And we have hundreds and hundreds of witness reports in the archives.
The media of the time seized on the story, and Storsey became the sought-after goal of a massive expedition.
It was a very interesting expedition, and even the Swedish king gave the company organization money because it was very interesting in what is it under the surface.
Prepared for whatever might come their way, the hunters left with a veritable arsenal of impressive instruments, all of which are now on display at the Jämtli Museum in Östersund.
In front of you, you have the trap that we used to trying to catch the monster in 1894. We put a pig in it and put it by the lake in hopes to get the monster into it. Here you also can see some of the other things we used to try to catch the monster. Here we have the harpoon, and they made a big hole in the ice. And a man stood by the hole with his harpoon, and hopefully he would see the monster, and then he could harpoon it. But the monster never showed itself, so it was not successful.
As a deputy director of Jämtli, it's important for us to show the story about the monster and the stories about all the people who have seen the monster, because it's such a big and important story of the region. People have been seeing this monster for 400 years. We can't just wipe that out of our history. It's an important part. So we couldn't really build a museum without it.
The Jämtli Museum in Östersund documents the history of Storsey and its numerous alleged appearances around the lake since the 1800s.
This is actually an embryo of the Great Lake monster. It was given to the museum on April 1st, 1986.
This embryo was found on the shore of the lake in 1984.
but it's very difficult to see if it's actually the Great Lake monster or if it's an embryo of something else. But the fun part is that it was given on April the 1st, Fool's Day. This is the map of the observation of the Great Lake monster, and as you can see, the most observations are around Östersund, Frösön.
Most sightings were indeed recorded around Frozen Lake, very near the site where 1,000 years earlier the famous rune was erected.
This is actually not updated for the last 20 years, but it's still the same pattern today. So we see the monster where the people live. That's where the most sightings are.
We have maybe 5 to 10 witnesses or stories every year in local media. And if you think that maybe 1 out of every 10 that see something tell the press, well, then we're talking about thousands of witnesses.
But of the thousands of possible witnesses, many do not wish to publicly share their experiences. An association has been created to enable them to privately discuss their experiences.
This is how I think it is. Och flera har sett liksom en stock som ligger. Och de har sett att det är någonting ovanför vattenytan. De tror att det är en sten eller någonting.
Among people who have witnessed this, there's this association called Föreningen Storsjödjuret. They have meetings on a yearly basis. They move from town to town around the lake like this. Every year new witnesses come forward at those meetings. Usually there's about 80 to 100 people.
So they have a meeting every summer, and then they can talk together about what they have seen.
And it's serious.
Evert Festen is an influential member of the Association of the Friends of Storsjö, created in 1990. Currently, there are 90 registered members who meet several times a year to discuss their experiences.
Så det var ju det här som var lite konstigt. Ja, det är så konstigt. Men har du sett någon fisk som har ögonbryn?
Nej,
det är inte jag har aldrig sett det förut.
Evert, who stayed silent for decades, understands the importance of creating a space in which everyone can express themselves with confidence and in safety. It may be that way, he believes, that the mystery of Lake Stursen will one day be solved.
It can be up to 5,000-6,000 people have seen it, but many of them don't talk. And every evening we have this, there come new witnesses.
Some people come along and they say, well, I saw this in 1945, I've kept secret, I haven't talked about it. But you hear all these stories, and then you start to think, how many people have seen this? Must be quite a number of them.
Each testimony reported to the association is recorded. They note all the details and circumstances of the sightings, and the data is then examined, compared, and measured.
Och jag har rapporter då på att det var en som såg 3 stycken som simmar bredvid varandra.
I can't say that I saw the same animal twice or if it was 2 different individuals. The first I saw was obviously huge. The second was a little bit, not quite as big as I would have envisaged after the first. But, you know, there's bound to be a family of sorts in the lake, a population of them, that maybe they can communicate some way.
Everybody say the Great Lake Monster or Storsjöodjur 1. I would rather say Storsjöodjur N, the Great Lake Monsters, because I don't think that there is just one animal monster or whatever it is. It has to be more of them, because we can go back 1,000 years from now, and I don't think that the monster or whatever it could be that old.
It's very interesting that when the Ice Age came to a halt, new lakes were created that was connected to the sea. And I believe that whatever this is, it has to be a family of something that once existed in the sea that now lives in this lake. Something that we thought was perhaps extinct. Could be some type of relative to maybe plesiosaurs or something. I don't know, but a lot of people have seen the long neck and what I saw, how could that swim like that if it didn't have fins and maybe some sort of a tail helping it to move along.
It should be most natural to have that it would be a fish at least, because if it would be a mammal, then where does it live during the winter? I mean, where to get some air and breathe. So that's why I think it should be a fish.
Some divers have seen some big eels. It could be the both. Big fishes, and it could be something that we have not find out what it is at the moment.
Alla de här och som är en vacker dag så är det någon som får en riktig närbild.
My name is Yvonne Lundin, and I'm a cryptozoologist. Cryptozoology is about animals that are not proven existing. Crypto stands for hidden, and zoology is, well, animal kingdom. I don't consider myself as a believer. Because it's non-scientific to be believing in things. It's better to keep an open mind. And I have a quite an open mind about there being something in the lake. I just don't know what.
Yvonne's approach to the Storsea mystery must be considered rational and evidence-based, a fact that surprises mainstream scientists who view Yvonne's discipline of cryptozoology with skepticism.
In the scientific society, there is very anti-cryptozoology feeling. It falls under almost the same thing as alien sightings or ghosts. And they find this area being a lost cause.
If the Storsea riddle is considered by scientists to be a lost cause, it's probably because for every person who believes in the monster, there are others who are skeptical and sometimes go as far as to openly discredit arguments for the monster's existence.
Both skeptics and professional skeptics, scientists, use the same explanation for every sea monster sighting ever, everywhere on the planet. Great catfish, big log, weather phenomena, birds, swimming elks, but I'm not sure that's very common in other parts of the world.
There are people who don't believe in this, and they don't go to our meetings and listen. And they say it's impossible, and they think we are crazy.
They usually don't call people liars to their face, but behind their back, certainly. Oh, he wants to be in the paper, he said he saw a monster. It's very sad, really.
It angers me that people that have seen this are treated like this. It's like bullies in a schoolyard sort of situation. Mr. Festin's sighting is one of the really good ones, and he's working so hard, and he you know, people like that, you shouldn't belittle them. I think that's disgraceful. But someday, you know, people like him and others that work with this will be vindicated, and, you know, I hope it happens within a few years.
I really don't know why people believe or don't believe, but I think that the people who believe in the monster, the Great Lake monster, they have actually seen something that they can't explain in any other way than that it must be an animal. You can see it in other countries as well. The Great Lake monster has cousins in Scotland, in Norway, in the US, and all over the world. So it's not only in Östersund that we see this kind of animal, so it has to be something that the human being is seeing and trying to explain all over the world.
We discover new animals almost every year, new sharks, new seals. And maybe we have something extraordinary here that one day will just be a complete sensation. And then we will have the scientists coming here. And I'll say, told you so.
Efforts to capture Storsey or to try to prove its existence have not been successful so far, despite the sophisticated attempts made by the most convinced. But this is not a reason to give up. Over time, interest in solving the mystery has not diminished. Only the methods have changed.
Today we're going to dive for the Storsey in the Great Lake. And we will be going down to about maximum of 18 meters.
These divers will explore the depths of the lake in the hope not of capturing the beast, but of obtaining images of it or any traces it might have left behind. Residents of Östersund and any interested tourists are invited to attend the peculiar dive school.
So the Great Lake Monster course is designed for 2 days. It's 1 day of theory. The next day is 2 dives that we're gonna look at the monster.
We have this story of the monster, so it's fun to take it and see what you can find.
To help maximize the chances of success on these expeditions, the dives are done only under the most favorable weather conditions and are mostly carried out between the island of Frösön and Östersund's shore. Hans and Linus are very experienced diving instructors. They have spent dozens of hours exploring the depths of many bodies of water around the world. But according to them, nothing compares to a dive into Lake Storsön.
I've never seen the Great Lake Monster, Storsjöodjuret, but sometimes can feel like something is watching us when we do diving. It felt like, who's there?
You can feel in your stomach when you dive that there is something around you, but you can't really make for sure what it is. And the first time I felt that, my pulse went up, and I have to control myself a bit because it was a bit scary. But then I looked up, and I couldn't see anything. It's a bit hard to describe, but I never felt that before anywhere else. It's not every dive that you have the feeling either. It's specific dives, but many of my dives I have felt it. It was not a good Great Lake Monster day today.
This was the second dive in my monster program, and I didn't see anything. I didn't feel anything.
We saw a lot of plants, but no fish. And the monster's primary food is fish, so I don't think it's around here right now. When we dived here last time, it was more summer. So I think it's probably gone deeper now for the winter.
You never know how many dives you have to do. If you're lucky, you can find it, but some must dive a lot of times.
I hope that I one day will spot Storsjöodjuret, and I hopefully have my camera with me so that I can show it to the world.
An hour's drive south of Östersund, in the city of Svenstavik, Other means are still taken to try to locate Storsey.
Today we're going to search for the Great Lake Monster, Storsjöodjuret. Beautiful weather, a little bit rough on the sea maybe, but the weather is so good, the condition is perfect for it, so let's go for it.
Suzanne Kinström has hunted the creature for years. She directs a research center focused on Storsey. With her team, she travels the lake extensively, looking for clues.
Nu hoppar den där borta I.
In 2008, Suzanne decided to take drastic measures.
One of our members saw something in the summer 2007, and that gave us an idea to work with cameras. We have behind us now the small islet with the cameras. You can see the 4 cameras over the surface, but we have also cameras under the surface. 3 who's searching for the monster in real time, so we can see it from the observation center.
In 2009, Suzanne established an observation center to find the Great Lake Monster, complete with the most sophisticated equipment.
This is what we call the surveillance station, where we have the live feed cameras. Every time there's a movement, the cameras will register it, and we can go back and watch it and see what it is. This technology is very unique for a museum. It's very easy, like with the touchscreen, you don't have to use any tools. Anyone can use it, from a 70-year-old to a 3-year-old.
With its permanent monitoring system capable of detecting movements on the surface of the water, as well as in its depths, the Great Lake Monster Center is unique in the world. Some devices are even programmed to be sensitive to heat.
This is the only center in Sweden as a sort of a museum combined with high technology. That's why we want to have people to come here and be a searcher.
In being invited to scrutinize the images captured by underwater cameras, visitors become involved in research efforts. They are encouraged to share their observations, which are then analyzed by the researchers.
So you don't know when the time comes, but you must have the situation, and now we have it with the cameras.
Images captured by visitors shortly after the center's opening have piqued the curiosity of hundreds of thousands of internet users.
It was in the video, it was a small thing, just like a small worm, but it has an interesting mouth, just an upside-down mouth. It's not a fish, it's not a frog, but it has a very interesting head. When people around the world saw it, it was a big bang for us. And then on 3 days, 500,000 people was just coming in the website. Then we understand that people all around the world are very interested in unknown things.
And someday, because of the new technology, we'll know. But for the moment, it's very difficult, and it's a big lake. The people that are currently doing it are doing it on sort of one location, hoping to find it over there, I guess. But science has a long way to go yet. We need the new technologies here to really find out about this. Get the money to do proper research with sonar equipment and so on a much larger scale. That's the answer.
When you come to Östersund, you will notice the animal on quite a few places. And it's obvious that the municipality of Östersund, they really want to make it the symbol of the city.
Up to now, observing Storsey in its natural habitat has been an unrealized dream. But it's impossible to miss him on the streets of Östersund.
I don't think tourists are attracted to coming here, especially for the monster, but it gives the area a special value, special characteristics that are positive for the region.
According to many residents, Storsey brought Östersund out of obscurity, and some are convinced that the creature could further enhance the local economy.
The monster is somewhat important to the tourism to Östersund, but it could be more important. I think we are a bit hesitating how much we should use it in the marketing of the region and the city, because on one hand it's a great symbol and we like the story and we think it's special, and on the other hand some people think it's a bit embarrassing. Oh, should we really be famous for something that maybe don't exist?
I think it could be much bigger, in fact. I think they have underestimated the potential for tourism and so on. So people know that this is not just an ordinary town, we have something special here.
The Great Lake Monster is an important part of the cultural heritage of Jämtland, and as a curator of the museum and the deputy director, I'm not really interested in whether it exists or not. The important thing to us is the stories that people have to tell, and we are full of respect for all the witnesses and the people that claim that they have seen something, because they have. We absolutely believe that they have seen something, and it's their stories that we collect, and it's their stories that's important to us.
I think the general public is not going to have too much of an interest in this until the day comes when you have the big headlines. They have now conclusive a shot of film or something, or a dead animal. Then it will be a world sensation. Everybody will talk about it. It will be one of the biggest stories of our lives, really. I really hope that in my lifetime we will find out what it is.